There's basically just two seasons down there. Hot. So there's dry hot and then wet hot. And so like if you get there from like, I got there in November, which it was just hot. And I remember the little companion that I took off on the bike, my trainer, in December, he came outside and he was like shivering. And I'm like, he's like, it's so cold. He goes, I hate winter. We looked at the temperature, it was like 85. He was cold during that. So I mean, range, it never got below like 80 degrees. So you got like November to January, February is like dry hot. Then you get into hot season, March through April. It's just so hot. It's just like you're dying. Yeah, so some people would get to Cambodia on their missions during that time, and they would just be like, what is going on? So, and then, you know, like June to August is like monsoon season. So it's hot, but then you just like, you'll feel a few drops and then it'll just pour on you. That was fun. Like it would be dry, you know, dry, totally nice, and then you feel a few drops and just dump, and there'd be like huge floods. Some really cool stories about that. In the city, it's just a bunch of mangy old dogs, nasty dogs, rats. Tons of rats would come out. It was, yeah. In the city, there's not that much wildlife, but they do have a zoo outside the city. It was really cool. Monkeys and all sorts of wildlife out there, but mostly just rats and dogs in the city. Spiders. Yeah, we were tracking it. We were going down this alley and we came across this spider. I'll show a picture of it to you in a little bit. It was the size of my palm, so its fingers were the size of, were like that far out, the width from like foot to foot, and then its body was about the size of my thumb. I have big thumbs, so it was huge. It was a spider where its body was that and its legs were like as long as my fingers, skinnier. And it had this cockroach hanging out of its mouth. Yeah, I'll show you the picture in a second. It's crazy. So it was eating this cockroach. So we like set our little like, you know, little like gospel pamphlet next to it to see the size. It was like half the size of the whole pamphlet. It was, I haven't seen anything like it. Yeah. So that's wildlife, mostly rats, dogs, insects. Oh my gosh, the ants. Yeah. You leave out like a little bit of food, there'd be like an army of ants. Yeah. It's just like thousands of ants crawling through your house. And even if you like sealed everything up, they'd come through the outlets into your house. That was fun. I was excited to try and outsmart the ants.
Cambodia, first of all, is a very hot country. Most of the time it was 90 or 95 or 100 or even 105 and like 99% humidity. So when you're biking for like 5 or 10 miles each day, you sweat a lot. In Cambodia, you're always wet. You're either wet from being sweaty or you're either wet because it's raining outside. But you're usually not very dry. Cambodia is also a swamp. There are a lot of rivers. There are a few lakes. And often places get flooded. So sometimes you have to walk through water that's up to your knees or sometimes even up to your hips. So it's quite the adventure. So getting to Cambodia, I thought I've spent several years of my life in Asia. And I thought I'd actually been to Cambodia before my mission. I thought I knew sort of what Cambodia was going to be about. I was dead wrong. Cambodia is sort of like other Asian countries, but because of recent history of war and other civil struggles, Cambodia is sort of 30, 40, or even 50 years behind the times as compared to other countries even in Southeast Asia. So Cambodia is very poor. I had to deal with the people who have been influenced a lot by poverty, who have been influenced a lot by recent political regimes, who have been influenced a lot by the superstition and the traditions of their fathers. So the Cambodian people carry a lot of baggage. And society there carries a lot of baggage that goes all the way back to Pol Pot. But it's absolutely wonderful. Even though it's so hard, even though it's so rough, even though it's so interesting, it's absolutely amazing. Cambodia is so fun. It is so amazing. It is so inspiring. It is so exhilarating. And at the same time, it is so hard, it is so challenging, It is so depressing, and it's just organized chaos all at the same time. So when I got there, I had to become used to, my body went through a lot of different transformations. In the first couple of months, I probably lost about 30 pounds. So that's partly because you lose a lot of weight when you're sweating a lot, when you're riding your bike a lot. You also have to get used to new food. Many of the elders, when they get there, they lose a lot of weight because they get giardia or dysentery or something like that. So they might go diarrhea for 50, 60, 75 times or something, nonstop for 3 or 4 days. So that's a little bit scary, but that usually happens. A lot of missionaries will end up getting parasites or other diseases there. And actually over time, most of the missionaries get used to it and their bodies adapt to the environment. But environmentally, it's quite an adjustment. I would say as a country, it's a very high medical risk nation. And because of that, we just have to assume that the Lord will save us. There's a scripture I remember I believe it's in Mormon, where it talks about how the Lord's missionaries will be able to eat things and not be poisoned, will be able to handle snakes and not be poisoned, that they'll be able to speak new tongues, that they'll be able to do miracles and do mighty works. One of the nicknames of Cambodia is the Kingdom of Wonders. I love that because Cambodia is a kingdom of wonders. It is someplace where you can expect the unexpected to happen. You expect miracles to happen. You expect crazy things to happen. It's almost as if the normal rules that we know in life here in the Western modern world that we're so used to don't really exist there. The cultural differences there are night and day different. So, first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about Cambodian religion. They're very, very Buddhist. Yet at the same time, they don't really realize that their form of Buddhism is not very kosher, not very correct per se. They sort of mix it in with Hinduism and Chinese ancestor worship and other folk and other previously tribal and shamanistic traditions, including animism. So there's a lot of different beliefs that are sort of mixed in. So they think they're Buddhist, but in actuality, they practice a lot of things that aren't very Buddhist. They have very much the perception that everything's good. They say, "Tfil law ban law," which means do good, you get good. That's their basic assumption. So when we're coming in as missionaries, we try to teach them about the gospel of Jesus Christ. They sort of think, oh, Christianity, I'm sure it must be a good thing. They don't really know anything about Jesus Christ or about Christian religion or much about that, but they just think, oh, it's probably good. But they don't really have any desire to leave Buddhism because it's the traditions of their fathers. They're completely bound to it. So that's one problem that makes it a little bit hard in contacting. I remember in my first area, we tried contacting down every single road. We probably contacted hundreds of people, and most of the people, they were just like, I'm Buddhist. So we didn't really get a whole lot of investigators or even baptisms out of contacts. I feel like the most effective way was through members' referrals. Because members, when they give out a referral, they're giving out someone they trust, someone that they know. And when the members receive the gospel, it is able to bring a light upon them like no other light they've known before. The Cambodian people have experienced so much darkness, even within their own lifetimes, and even before then. It is a country that is filled with spiritual darkness. And finally, within the last 20 years, since the missionaries have come to Cambodia, the restoration is able to penetrate the lives of those people and is able to take the shades of darkness out of their lives, out of their eyes, and they're able to see with a new perspective, and the gospel is able to change and transform their lives, is able to make their spiritual lives better, and is even able to make their temporal lives better. So, when that change happens, some of their family members hopefully notice it, some of their friends or neighbors might notice it, and some of those people will want to learn about the church. So I found it was very effective to contact not just once, but again and again, and talk to and interact with the neighbors of members and the family members of neighbors of those members. So when you get to know those different social circles, you're able to penetrate those, and they start to realize that you're more than just this crazy Frenchman. Oh, by the way, they think all Western people are French over there for some reason. And they're able to see that you're more than just this missionary, that you're a human being, and that you have something that can help them. Yet again, another problem there is that many people want to learn about the church because they've heard that they can get some type of physical benefit from it. There are a lot of organizations, NGOs in Cambodia, that try to help a lot of poor people because poverty is a big problem over there. So many people have the assumption that we're some sort of NGO. We have to explain that we're not, and we can't tell them that we're going to try to help them. They have to be able to come into Christ first spiritually before they can receive any type of physical assistance from their branch president or bishop. They need to be able to enter the waters of baptism, have a firm testimony, contribute to the church before they're able to receive anything in return physically.